Hello, everyone. Welcome to my little YouTube channel for this class. Today I'll be talking about the Byzantine art and music, and let me get that pulled up so everyone can see it. Okay, so on the left is kind of just a cheeky picture of Emperor Theophilos, who was an emperor that very much promoted the arts and music. Even though he was an iconoclast, he still, like probably other emperors who were iconoclasts too, he was very active and honestly a pretty underrated emperor, and definitely one of the best that most people don't know about. And then to his right, we have an icon of St. George. So it's kind of almost a funny contrast that I did there, putting an iconoclast right next to an icon. So, but anyway, um, so um, so the intro paragraph is important because we don't get to Byzantine art and music just overnight. It's a transition. And it's important, I think, to talk about Byzantine philosophy and culture because it's a big deal when you shift your total religion from paganism to Christianity. And for a transcontinental empire like the Roman slash Byzantine, or really just the Eastern Roman Empire, to do that. And how we get there is with the two top pictures. So on the left or the right is Constantine the Great. That's a later rendition of him. He probably didn't grow a beard because that was seen as a pagan appearance, but it's a later rendition of him. And then, of course, on the left is the very well known Emperor Justinian, with, of course, Hagia Sophia in the background and some cataphracts there. Both of these emperors were kind of the beginning and the end of this transition. Constantine the Great, he's not necessarily the first Christian emperor, although he's not a Christian in his younger years, but he certainly becomes one at some point during his reign. And then we have Justinian, who kind of finalizes um, the end of paganism. So Constantine kind of starts it, but Constantine's a little bit more of trying to keep Christians and pagans together, keep the two different aspects of liberal arts kind of in unity. Justinian is having none of it, and he wants to totally abolish it. And this isn't going to be a huge paragraph, but I think it's important to talk about it just so people can get the context. Because I think if you don't talk about these two figures in this aspect, because both were very artistic as well as able military minds. And so on the bottom, I just have a picture of the Byzantine Empire at its third to last apex. The year Basil II dies. It's just to show that this is a transcontinental empire, even with, Spain no longer, none of North Africa, Sicily's gone, much of northern Italy is no longer around. But still, if you look at the concentration of Greece, Turkey, and that's kind of another thing, the shift from Italy to Greece. So in the second paragraph, this is where I talk about Byzantine art in and of itself, just the art. And the era I'm going to focus on, I know I didn't put it here, but the eras I'm going to focus on are 610 to 1025. So the beginning of Heraclius's reign to the death of Basil II, because this is known as the dominant era, and I will put that in the paper. And so I don't have a picture of it, but of course, I do have a picture of the marble and limestone and semi-precious stones in this bottom picture here of the marine fauna likely near Constantinople. And then at the top, I have a brooch of Christ Pancrator. But I am also going to look at secular art from the Madrid Skilitzes and talk about the continuation of Roman art. Mosaics like this one on the bottom, that that could go that could be very tolerated as an artistic style in any period of the Roman Empire or even the Roman Republic. But it also is different because usually you would have a pagan deity maybe in the background with something like this, but now because there's no longer paganism, it's just the wildlife, and it's almost interesting. It's an interesting concept to think of Byzantine art as being a difference between secular and Christian, and that's something I'll explore in the paper too. And then, of course, I'm going to compare it and contrast it to the Western European art, mainly of France, England, and Germany / the German states. And then in my third paragraph, I'm going to talk about the music. So at the top is just a cathedral in a Byzantine architecture style. I'm going to talk about the secular music. So at the bottom of the screen, this picture here, the picture is focusing on what's called a Byzantine lyra. So it's an early violin sort of that you play sort of like, not totally like a violin, but sort of like a cello, only it's much smaller. And then the top image is a lute or an oud, sometimes known as the Arabic or Greek guitar, one of them. And that's something I'll talk about with the development of bowed instruments, but also continuation of guitar-like instruments is very prevalent in Byzantine secular music for sure. The religious hymns, so early on there's polyphony, polyphonic singing, so multiple voices. There's not really scale modes the same way the ancient Greeks created them. So Mixolydian, My Dear Aunt Sally, if you know music. So Mixolydian, Lydian, Phrygian, Dorian, Locrian, Ionian. Those are scales if you're a musician. Those kind of go away during pretty much actually even before the eras I'm focusing on. So for the conclusion, Byzantine music and art are similar, of course, to those of other medieval states, but yet they're so different in their execution and how they get there and how they're developed. Because you're sometimes taught that polyphonic singing doesn't start until the 1300s. Well, this paper is going to show that kind of the typical ideas like that you thought of, they didn't really exist. So with that said, thank you for listening, and I hope you all have a great day.